Today we're going to be learning about how to create and analyze different tiling patterns using the different transformations that we've been looking at. So rotations, reflections, and translations, as well as the new one you learned about this year, which were called dilations. Now a reminder that when we translate, rotate, or reflect, we don't actually change the size of the shape, we just move it to a new location on the grid. However, a dilation does change the size, and we talked about changing the size based on a scale factor and how to do that. So why is it important that we understand tiling patterns and how all of those things fit in? Well, we see patterns pretty much everywhere, every day in our world, and you might not even be aware of it. But on the screen now I have a few examples of different types of tiling patterns that we have created here. So this one, which I'm going to enlarge over here, you can see is a floor tiling pattern, and it's actually a combination of a bunch of different patterns. Throughout the inside of this section here, we have the use of diamonds and triangles. Throughout the outside section, all the way around here, we have square tiles, and then within this kind of extra border section, we have a variety actually of, it looks like rectangles, a diamond, or maybe it's a square tilted, and rectangles of different sizes. So we have all kinds of different shapes that are involved in that pattern there. Our pattern in the middle here, this one, is a pretty basic sidewalk or patio pattern, I guess. And again, it's actually made up of a combination of different patterns. This section throughout here, which would kind of be our sidewalk, is a combination of different squares. This section that's here is also different squares, but those would be dilations because they're much smaller than the squares beside them. And then this part of the pattern here is using a rectangle, which has been transformed a variety of different ways to create the pattern that you see there. And finally, the last pattern that we have here is a floor tile pattern. Whoops. So if you look at our floor tile pattern, you can see that it's made up of a few different shapes. The white shape that you see here is actually an octagon. It has 8 sides and it's been repeated over and over again. But in addition, there's also a diamond or a square pattern which fills the gaps in this pattern. Now that's something really important to understand about a tiling pattern. In order for it to be a tiling pattern, the pattern shapes have to do something called fill the whole plane. And what that means is that they don't make up any gaps. So again, if we look at some of these other patterns more closely, if we look at the floor tile pattern again, for example, if we had just layered these hexagons in a row connecting, this one, or octagons, I mean, this one connects here, this one connects here, it touches here, we would have this nice pattern of all of these different octagons, but all of the places where these squares are would be gaps. And if they're gaps or if there are holes in the pattern, then it cannot be a tiling pattern, okay? Because a tiling pattern fills the whole plane. So that's something that's important for you to remember when you are making your own. So the question then becomes, how do you make your own pattern? Well, the first thing you need to do is start with a shape. In this case, I've chosen a trapezoid to start with, and I've placed it on my grid paper there. Now, if I want to add another trapezoid, I can do that. And now I have 2 trapezoids side by side. But as you can see, right here, I have a gap. So if I continue to just add my trapezoids on one at a time like this, I would make a pattern, but it wouldn't be considered a tiling pattern because I would have these gaps here in these spaces. And we know that a tiling pattern can't have gaps. So instead what I want to do is actually first rotate the shape, as you can see here, and then translate it or slide it over so that the 2 edges right here meet. I can continue adding trapezoids one after the other, making sure that there's no gaps and that they're touching until my pattern is as long as I would like it. Then I can continue my pattern by adding a row underneath. So here you can see I've taken my first trapezoid and I've had to rotate it, or flip it actually, you could do either, until it sits without any gaps right underneath. And then I would continue filling in trapezoid by trapezoid by trapezoid by trapezoid by trapezoid by trapezoid by trapezoid until my pattern is as big as I want it to be or until it fills as much space as I want it to fill. Alright, let's look at a pattern that I created with some hexagon pattern blocks. When you're looking at it now, Can you tell me, is it a tiling pattern? Yes or no? Well, hopefully when you look at it, you can say, no, it's not a tiling pattern because we have gaps. We have all kinds of gaps. We have gaps there, we have gaps here, we have gaps down here. Okay? It's a pattern, yes, but it's not considered a tiling pattern because it doesn't fill the whole plane. There are gaps in it. However, it is easy enough to take our green triangular pattern blocks and add them into our design. Now I've gotten rid of all of those gaps, I've filled the entire plane, and now I have created a tiling pattern. So hopefully after watching this quick 5.5-minute video, you have a better understanding of what a tiling plane is, and you can start analyzing and creating them.